Here's a question a lot of people are asking this morning. Were we lied to by Pope Francis over Traditionis Custodes? Because there was a bombshell yesterday dropped by Diane Montagna. Official Vatican report exposes major cracks in the foundation of Traditionis Custodes. Diane has obtained a copy of the questionnaire Francis sent out in 2020, asking the world's bishops, hey, how has Benedict's Summorum Pontificum gone so far? They responded, and then based on their responses, we were told by Pope Francis that he must act to restore unity, that things were not good. And then he hammered the traditional Latin Mass community. According to the actual responses, it seems that the opposite was true. By the way, my name is Joe McLean. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below. But there's been bombshell news coming out yesterday in the afternoon from Diane Montagna on her Substack. I'm going to link to it in the show notes for you at thestationofthecross.com/ACT. But the headline says, exclusive official Vatican report exposes major cracks in foundation of Traditionis Custodes. And it's begging the question. A lot of people are asking the question right today. Did Pope Francis lie to us on purpose? That's the question. That's a big deal. That is a very big deal to accuse a pope of lying intentionally. But this is the conversation that we're having today because of this report. And I want to go through it for you. There are 7 takeaways that I also want to review for you in this segment. It's a big deal. Let's jump into it. Again, I'll link to it for you to read for yourself. It says, new evidence has come to light that exposes major cracks in the foundation of Traditionis Custodes. Pope Francis's 2021 decree that restricted the traditional Roman liturgy. You remember 2020 when we were dealing with the lockdowns, masses being closed, masking up 6 feet, all of that stuff? Remember that? The jabs? Oh, yeah. We were also dealing with the threat, the looming threat that traditional Latin Mass communities would be severely restricted. Oh, yeah, we kind of forgot about all that, didn't we? This journalist has obtained the Vatican's overall assessment of the consultation of bishops that was said to have prompted Pope Francis to revoke Summorum Pontificum, Benedict XVI's 2007 apostolic letter liberalizing the Vitus Ordo, more commonly known as the traditional Latin Mass and sacraments. You see, it was in 2020 that he sent out a questionnaire to the entire world's bishops. Hey, how has Benedict's Summorum Pontificum been going? And those results that came back from that questionnaire is what's being reported on in this article. It goes on. The previously undisclosed text, which forms a crucial part of the official report by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith on its 2020 consultation of bishops concerning Summorum Pontificum, reveals that, quote, the majority of bishops who responded to the questionnaire stated that making legislative changes to Summorum Pontificum would cause more harm than good, close quote. Wait, hold on. The results were that implementing any restrictions would cause more harm than good. Then why did Traditionis Custodes come out? Therein lies the trick, isn't it? It goes on. The overall assessment directly contradicts, therefore, the stated rationale for imposing Traditionis Custodes and raises serious questions about its credibility. When, on July the 16th, 2021, Pope Francis promulgated Traditionis Custodes, he said the responses to the questionnaire, quote, reveal a situation that preoccupies and saddens me and persuades me of the need to intervene, close quote, Pope Francis. But hold on, a second ago, we were told that the response was any restrictions to Summorum Pontificum would cause more harm than good. But he's saying that he has to act here. It goes on, quote, regrettably, he said in an accompanying letter to the world's bishops, the pastoral objective of my predecessors has often been seriously disregarded. An opportunity offered by St. John Paul II and, with even greater magnanimity, by Benedict XVI was exploited to widen the gaps, reinforce the divergencies, and encourage disagreements that injure the church block her path, and expose her to the peril of division. Close quote. Sounds dire. Pope Francis made it sound like the results from the questionnaire were bad, and he had to act to restore unity. It goes on. He told the bishops that he was constrained by their requests to revoke not only Summorum Pontificum, but, quote, all the norms, instructions, permissions, and customs, close quote, that preceded his new decree. However, what the Vatican's overall assessment reveals is that the, quote, gaps, divergences, and disagreements stem more from a level of nescience, prejudice, and resistance of a minority of bishops to Summorum Pontificum than from any problems originating from adherence to the traditional Roman liturgy. There was a small number of bishops who didn't like the traditional forms of piety or culture or what have you, and they refused to implement Summorum Pontificum. Kind of like when, say Bishop Strickland got in trouble for not implementing Traditionis Custodes. It was kind of a similar situation. These bishops didn't want Summorum Pontificum in their diocese, so they just didn't implement it. And then they were the ones that complained. It goes on. Conversely, the official CDF report states that the majority of bishops who responded to the questionnaire and who have generously and intelligently implemented Summorum Pontificum ultimately express satisfaction with it. It adds that in places where the clergy have closely cooperated with the bishop, the situation has become completely pacified. The overall assessment, which can be viewed at the end of this article, and again, we're linking to it in the show notes for you, in the original Italian and in an English translation, also confirms the contention that Diane reported back in October of 2021, that the Traditionis Custodes magnified and projected as a major problem what was merely an ancillary in the official CDF report. They took a tiny minority issue and they blew it up and pretended as though it was the overwhelming majority issue. It goes on. Furthermore, the text clearly shows that Traditionis Custodes disregarded and withheld what the report said about the peace Summorum Pontificum had restored and turned a blind eye to a constant observation made by the bishops that younger people were being drawn into the Catholic Church through this older form of the liturgy. The overall assessment also predicted, based on the responses of bishops, what would ensue were Summorum Pontificum suppressed forecasts that turned out to be accurate. Kind of a big deal. Kind of a big deal. There are 7 takeaways from this document that now Diane Montagna has received and translated and linked to. And again, we're linking to them in the show notes for you. But in the spring of 2020, a questionnaire was sent by then CDF Prefect Cardinal Luis Ladaria to the presidents of Episcopal conferences worldwide for the distribution to diocesan bishops. Responses were received by the CDF until January 2021. The body of material submitted in several languages was processed, analyzed, and incorporated by the 4th section, which is the Ecclesia Dei Commission, which regulated Summorum Pontificum for the world. So the Fraternity of St. Peter, SSPX, the Institute of Christ the King, the Good Shepherd, all of these communities that maintain is their charism, the traditional forms of the sacraments, piety, and custom, they were regulated by the Ecclesia Dei Commission, which is, as a result, to Traditionis Custodes has been done away with. Let that sink in. It says the overall assessment opens by noting that Summorum Pontificum played a significant, albeit relatively modest, role in the life of the Church. By 2021, it had spread to around 20% of Latin dioceses worldwide, and its implementation was more serene and peaceful, though not everywhere. Pope Francis not only had the report, but according to reliable sources, literally snatched a working copy out of Cardinal Ladaria's hands during an audience, telling him he wanted it immediately because he was curious about it. Although the Vatican has never released the contents of the official report, in October of 2021, I obtained and published the collection of quotations included in Part 2, indicating, however, only the country or region from where the quotations originated. This collection may be viewed in full at the end. And again, she links to them, and we're linking to hers, so you can find her Substack, though, if you search for it. The overall assessment, 7 key takeaways. I want to go through these 7 takeaways for you. So they send the questionnaire out to all the bishops. They get the responses back, and they get 7 key takeaways. Number 1, lack of liturgical peace and unity is due more to a minority of bishops than to adherents of the traditional Roman liturgy. Let that sink in. It says this ecclesiological dimension of the hermeneutic of continuity with the tradition and with a coherent renewal and development has not yet been fully embraced by some bishops, the report observes. However, where it has been received and implemented, it is already bearing fruit, the most visible of which is in the liturgy. So there are bishops, as I said, who did not want to implement Pope Benedict XVI Summorum Pontificum. Kind of like how there were bishops that didn't want to implement Traditionis Custodes. Only those bishops got hammered, whereas before, the bishops that didn't want to implement Summorum Pontificum, they were never hammered. It seems like a little bit of hypocrisy there, but anyway, I go on. More specifically, the report found that bishops in Spanish-speaking regions generally seem to show little interest in implementing Summorum Pontificum, despite requests from the faithful. Let that sink in. By the way, there was an issue over the Summorum Pontificum and the SSPX, and Benedict himself said Summorum Pontificum was not intended for the SSPX. Point number 2, the second takeaway from this questionnaire document. Majority of bishops who implemented Summorum Pontificum expressed satisfaction with it. The majority of bishops expressed satisfaction. Conversely, the report found that the majority of bishops who responded to the questionnaire and who have generously and intelligently permitted the MP Summorum Pontificum ultimately express satisfaction. It adds that in places where the clergy have closely cooperated with the bishop, the situation has become completely pacified. And this, I have to say, is true for what I experienced in my diocese. As these diocesan priests were trained and learned to say the traditional form of the Mass, they enjoyed the peace within their own parish communities of both the extraordinary and the ordinary form of the liturgy. And Catholics were being exposed to this in their home parishes. They didn't have to drive an hour plus away to some other community. They were staying right there in their own backyard and experiencing all of it. That was true for us until Traditionis Custodes hammered it. It goes on. According to the report, the majority of bishops who responded to the questionnaire state that making legislative changes to Summorum Pontificum would cause more harm than good. Point number 3, bishops are grateful for the competence of the Ecclesia Dei Commission. They were very happy that there was such a thing to help regulate the rollout of Summorum Pontificum. Point number 4, report confirmed attraction of young people to the older form of the liturgy. Quote, a constant observation made by the bishops is that it is young people who are discovering and choosing this older form of the liturgy. The majority of the stable groups present in the Catholic world are composed of young people, often converts to the Catholic faith, or those returning after a time away from the church and the sacraments. Point number 5, report highlighted growth of vocations. There are way more vocations flocking to these Ecclesia Dei communities than they were to the diocesan communities after Traditionis Custodes. Point number 6, report recommended studying both forms of the Roman Rite as part of the seminarian formation. And coming in at number 7, let the people be free to choose, was one of the takeaways of this questionnaire to all the bishops of the world. But instead, we got Traditionis Custodes that hammered traditional Catholics and made them feel as though they were other and not welcome here. All are welcome. It doesn't seem so for all. I opened the loop with, did Pope Francis lie to us? It's a big, big deal to accuse the Pope of actually lying to the whole world. Maybe Francis embraced it wholeheartedly. Maybe it was also his opinion. Maybe it was also like his will. This is what we're doing. Or maybe he was just happy to hang out with these characters, and whatever they said, he was like, okay, no problem, just go for it. You know, in other words, I'm trying to say that there might be another option other than he willfully lied to the world. Because what if it turns out to be true that he willfully lied to the world? Let's just say we find some document that says, I, Pope Francis, have willfully lied to the world. I mean, you know, just for the sake of this conversation, like, let that sink in for a second. What is it? What are the implications of that? How are we to review? How are we to think about the rest of his pontificate? And I say that to say that as of right now, I don't think we can prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that he willfully lied to the world. I think we can lean heavily towards that direction. I feel like there's enough to go, it sure looks like it. Can't say it for sure, but boy, does it ever look that way. And then what does that actually mean? Like, what are the implications of the Pope willfully deciding to do this damage to Holy Mother Church? And that, I think, is the bottom line on this story. No matter if Francis lied or not lied, the damage is extensive. Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.